Hey guys, it's Natalie. Welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would do a book haul for you guys, kind of some summer reads that I'm planning to get through. I've already gotten through a couple of them and I'm loving the fantasy vibes. I'm loving the nonfiction vibes. So I just wanted to go ahead and talk about some books that I got. And going along with this, which you'll see, I have purchased a couple of books regarding race and racism in the United States, history of it, things like that, and the Black Lives Matter movement is going on. It's a very serious thing. It's something we all need to be paying attention to, and so I will leave some links to some really incredible books down below on the topic. I will leave some links to some petitions that need some encouragement or donations or funds or whatever. And so I've just been trying to sign petitions, trying to have those hard conversations, donate where I can, give my time where I can, go out and protest where I can, and read and educate myself. I feel like we all have that responsibility to educate ourselves on what's going on and how we can help and how we can actively support the Black community right now. So with that being said, without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the video. So I think I'm gonna start with like the fantasy, or high fantasy, there we go. High fantasy books, and I'll kind of worm my way down to the nonfiction. So let's just go ahead and get started. So I just came across this video and it was a girl talking about what she expects from the Percy Jackson series. Please excuse me for not remembering her name. I'll put her handle right here though, and I'll link her video down below about the new Percy Jackson series, and her video was like so charming and so cool. I've never read the series, but because apparently they're making a TV series about it, and she was talking about like everything she wants to see in the series as a TV show because they kind of botched the movie, I guess. It made me really want to read it, but I got the series. It's the 5 books and I am so excited to read it. I think it'll be so good. I've heard amazing things. I remember hearing about these when I was in like middle school, and I think that's when the movie came out, and so I'm very behind. But I believe it's a middle grade to young adult, kind of somewhere in between series, and so I'm really excited. Rick Riordan has been well known. We know who he is. We know Rick. And I'm really stoked to read this series. If you guys don't know, it is a like spin-off on the Olympian gods, and they're like children that live, I think, on Earth. It's supposed to be really cool. The main character is Percy, so that's all I know about it. But we're gonna learn. So I'm really stoked to be reading this series. I think I'm going to tap into it when I finish another nonfiction. I'm trying to kind of swap between the fictions and nonfictions just so I'm not too overwhelmed with one or the other and like decide not to finish them, because I want to read all these books that I have purchased. So yeah. Next up, we have a book that I've already finished that I adore, and that is The Merciful Crow. This book is so freaking good. It's about a fantasy world where there is a caste system based on different birds, and so like the hawks are the soldiers, the phoenixes are royalty, and the crows are kind of lowest of the low. There are the pigeons that are the commoners, there are the peacocks or the cranes or the swans that are the aristocracy, and it's really, really cool to see this whole world based around these castes. They're people, they're not actually birds. When I was describing this to my partner, he was like, oh, it's about birds? And I was like, no, that's just the name of the castes. But it's such a good book. It follows the main protagonist, Fee, as she is traveling with her band of crows. During this time in the kingdom, there is a plague that has, taken over the kingdom, and the crows are the only ones that are immune, and because of that, they're the ones that come to take the bodies and burn them before the plague can spread. Terribly mistreated and terribly abused by the people that hold power, so a little relevant to what's going on right now. And it was just a really, really heartbreaking but exciting story to read. I really, really recommend it. It was a really interesting read. There's a little bit of romance, there's a lot of action, and yeah, it touches on some really hard, really relevant topics. So I really liked it. The next book that I got is one that, please don't hate me, I'm so late to the game. Oh, this is like almost as bad as Percy Jackson. But this is Sabaa Tahir's An Ember in the Ashes. I'm doing it. This has been on my TBR literally for probably like at least like 4 or 5 years. Like, it's been a while, probably since it like came out. I remember this coming out in hardcover. This is the paperback, so you know it's been a while. But that being said, I've heard amazing things. I will read the back to you guys real quick so you get an idea of what's going on. Under the Martial Empire, defiance is met with death. Leia and her family do not challenge the Empire. They've seen what happens to those who do. But when Leia's brother is arrested for treason, she is forced to make a decision. In exchange for help from rebels who promise to rescue her brother, she will risk her life to spy for them within the Empire's greatest military academy. There, Leia meets Elias, the school's finest soldier, and secretly, its most unwilling. He and Leia will soon realize that their destinies are intertwined, and that their choices will change the fate of the Empire itself. So this is a hugely famous YA series, and I'm so sorry. For some reason, my brain is like short-circuiting with names. Leia, L-A-I-A, help me in the comments. I'm really excited to read this. I've heard amazing things. Again, one of the beloved in this community, so how can you say no to that? Next is another book that is so well loved and so cherished in this community, and this is by none other than Tomi Adeyemi. Sorry, I hope I said your name right. This is Children of Blood and Bone, and I know her second book came out, I believe, in December in the series, and this is a book about magic and murder and mystery, and I'm so excited to get into this world and to dive deeper. And so this book is essentially about our main protagonist who is trying to fight to bring back magic into the world after the crown or the royalty is trying to destroy it. They've been killing all of the, I think they're called the Magi in this book? Yes, the Magi. And so the Magi are being killed and, you know, all magic is being destroyed essentially, and they are trying to bring it back. This is a really incredibly beloved book again in this community, and I have just been dumb and not read it. But this is one that I'm so excited to read. This is the next on my list, and I'm so stoked to dive in. The next book that I got, which was also a fantasy, is Serpent and Dove, and this book is great. I just finished this book actually because, as you guys know, I am studying some faiths. And it's great because it's an interesting contrast between witchcraft and Christianity and the difference between the two, and essentially it follows the main character whose name is Lou or Louise, and she has run away from her coven because she is... That's part of the plot twist, so I'm not going to tell you. Some bad stuff happened. She runs away from her coven, and during this time, she and her close friend Coco work as thieves on the street to make ends meet, until one day Lou is found in a very compromising position with one of the Chaucers, which I believe is what they're called, which are the witch hunters for the church. And so because of this, she ends up having to marry this man whose name is Reed, and they go from having this like teasing, frustrating relationship to eventually falling in love. And throughout this story we see, you know, the contrasts in their face, the contrasts in the way they see the world, but also a lot of the similarities, and all these twists and turns kind of come together. I will say, and I mentioned this in my Goodreads review, some of the big plot twists are very predictable, just in the tiny hints that are dropped. They're a little bit too big, or I feel like they're not done subtly enough, because as soon as like a little thing was mentioned, like, oh, this person is related to this person, or this person did this, or something like that, and I feel like it became very clear. There's one part towards the end, which I think we'll all see, that you will find is the best plot twist in it, but it's definitely the only one that wasn't super predictable. But outside of that, is a great story. This is definitely more of a romance than it is a like action adventure, and I want to put that out there because I've seen a lot of really negative reviews of this since I've posted my review, and just were looking at other reviews after finishing it. A lot of people said they didn't enjoy it, or that it like wasn't good, and I agree with some of the predictability, but I think at the same time, if you're reading it as a romance, it does really well for itself. But I think if you're reading it purely as an action adventure, a lot of it is like relationship based, and I think it's really easy to get sidetracked with that, and you lose the whole plot and all of the intensity of the situations. But I think, again, if you read it really as like a fantasy romance, you get the vibes and you get the feels. So keep that in mind with this book. I just wanted to say that just because I have seen some things, but outside of that, I really love it, and I would definitely recommend it. I texted my best friend after I finished it, and I was like, dude, you gotta read this. So I think if that says anything for it. Yes. Some other books that I picked up for the English class I'm not taking this summer because it got canceled, but these are books I've been curious to read, so I'm like, I'm keeping them. It's literally fine. I have Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake, which is a novel. It is a dystopian, which is amazing. I was supposed to take a dystopian literature class. Like, who doesn't want to do that? But I couldn't because there was low enrollment. And I was like, who doesn't want to read dystopian novels while we're living in one? So I'm going to read you the excerpt once more. Humanity here equals Snowman, and in Snowman's recollection, Atwood recreates a time much like our own, when a boy named Jimmy loved an elusive, damaged girl named Oryx, and a sardonistic genius called Crake. But a snowman is alone, and as we learn why, we also learn about a world that could become ours one day. Margaret Atwood gives a keenly prescient novel about the future of humanity, and its present. So, relevant. I'm really excited. This has been on my list since I did like the big dystopian reads, when I did like 1984, Animal Farm, Brave New World, Island, Fahrenheit 451. I'm like looking at all of them on my bookshelf. But yeah, this is supposed to be incredible, so I'm so stoked to be reading this, whether or not it's for a class. It'll be incredible. Yes. The next book is one I'd actually never heard of before my class. It is Goldfame Citrus, and this is like a fancy like hardcover. Like, hello. I can't tell you what it's about. I have no idea. So if you know, this is a great book haul. Like, do you want to tell me what it's about? Because I don't know. Goldfame Citrus by Claire Vaye Watkins. And so I kind of like the mystery. Like, it's white too. It's just got the little CVW. It's a mystery. No one knows. And that's like kind of fun. So I think I'm going to read this one after Children of Blood and Bone. Now we move on to the ebooks. I'm sorry I did purchase these as ebooks because I wanted to read them immediately and bookstores weren't open at the start of this ordeal, so I could not purchase them. But it happened. It absolutely happened. So the first book I want to talk about, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, and this is a book about racism in the US, and it talks about the different issues that come up with, like, I feel like white defensism, and as well as things about just different topics in regards to race that I think a lot of white people tend to brush off or not act appropriately about, and I figured that this would be a really important book because it talks about white privilege from a perspective that is not holding white privilege. The author is a woman named Rennie Edo-Lodge. You know, we're all learning, it's all a process, and so this is a book I have not read yet, so I can't tell you exactly what it entails, but I'm really excited to get to it. This is like the book I'm finishing. I just finished Serpent and Dove today, so I definitely want to dive headfirst into this book and just stay on top of it. I found for me that when it comes to learning more about this topic and learning more about racism, especially in the US where I live, I think that books are a great way to do it because you can read a lot, because again, a lot of them are nonfiction. You can read them chapter by chapter, piece by piece, and take a minute to like reflect on each chapter as opposed to just bulldozing through like you would a fantasy novel. And I think that it gives you a chance to really digest what you're reading and to think about it. And I think it has a great chance of long-term success rather than forcing yourself to be bombarded with like so much information at once. I know a lot of people are feeling fatigue from all of the information being shared, and it is very overwhelming. I think everyone has to find their own balance with it, but I think that you shouldn't stop and you shouldn't give up just because you're tired. Like I said, what I'm doing is I read a fantasy novel, which is fun and kind of sparks the love for reading and just to read a story. And then I can dive back into books like this and really feel focused and feel concentrated on what I'm reading. And so I think that finding whatever works for you and keeping you on this roll and on this path is important. And whether that's just posting on social media and like working on that and signing petitions, whether that is reading and educating yourself, having those really hard conversations with the people in your life that you need to, or some mix of in between, I think that any action you step forward is important and it needs to be done, and it needs to be done consistently. We really need to be on top of ourselves and we really need to keep learning. So with that in mind, another book that I read that I loved so much, this book by Ijeoma Oluo, excuse you, iPad. So You Want to Talk About Race is a book that I have finished that I really enjoyed, and there is actually like a little worksheet questionnaire at the end of it that you can kind of use as you go through the book, again for reflection, to be able to think about what you're reading and to really process and make it applicable to your life. This book touched on really like kind of a little bit of everything. So like, why is racism the center of everything? What even is being racist? What is anti-racism versus being passive in that sense? Checking your privilege, the model minority myth. I just really enjoyed this book because it kind of shed light on a lot of topics that I don't have regular exposure to in my everyday life, and so I want to change that. And so this is something that has been a really awesome book. It's really digestible, it's really engaging and interesting to read. She gives a lot of her own life stories within the book, which I thought was really touching, and they really help you kind of ease into each topic because she gives you this example of real life, and it helps you when reflecting and going through the questions at the back on how you can react to something like that if you saw it in public, or if you saw or heard or experienced something similar, and how you can act. Oh my goodness, my battery died, something, my storage is full, I just don't know anymore. Anyways, I think I was in the middle of like a really important spiel here, but I was talking about Ijeoma Oluo's book, So You Want to Talk About Race, and just that I loved it and that I recommend everyone give it a read. If you want to read more about this topic, you should read more about this topic if you're not educated, and just, it's a great read. Like, it really just is. And so with that being said, those are all the books that I currently have picked up, that I've been reading, that I plan to read. I definitely think I will be picking up more as the summer goes on because I've already gone through a few of these, and so I definitely want to keep that going. So with that being said though, I really hope you guys liked this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys have any good book recommendations that I have not mentioned, please leave them down below. Again, be sure to check out my down bar description box, whatever you'd like to call it, down below for info on different petitions or bail funds or videos that I think you guys might really enjoy watching to learn more about the Black Lives Matter movement. Now is not the time to be silent, it is the time to uplift the voices that matter, which are Black lives and Black voices. So thank you guys again so much for watching. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more of me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I put out a couple videos every month. I'm not consistent yet, but hopefully by the end of the summer, I will be. We'll see. And so with that, I am going to say goodbye, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Bye!